All right. Hi, Steve. Thank you so much for coming on this first episode of The Buyer's Seller. When I reached out to you, I had mentioned that it's just an idea that I have to bring buyers to the table, to give buyers a seat at the table when it comes to seller training. We're getting a lot of training by sellers for sellers. And you have this unique perspective because you have been on the sales side and now you're CRO at LinkSquares. So I'm excited to dig into that unique perspective that you bring as someone who has sold and who is now being sold to by sellers. So without further ado, Steve Travaglini, welcome to the Buyer Seller podcast.
Thanks for having me, Ukot. It's a pleasure to be here. Just a little bit about me and my background. So I was a BDR, an account executive, sales manager, sales director, VP of sales, now CRO throughout my career. So I always try and keep myself grounded in the perspective of a seller as I make decisions for my organization, which today, as you mentioned, is LinkSquares. Joined the company 4 years ago, around 10 employees and about $500,000 in recurring revenue. We're a contract management SaaS company. Today, we have over 400 employees, well north of 30 million in annual recurring revenue. We've raised 161 million through our Series C, to date. So it's been a fun ride, and I think the topic of this podcast really caught my attention because it's a funny transition when you go from being the seller to the person being sold to, and I'm happy to offer up whatever I can to help everybody here.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you're talking about going from being a seller to being sold to, and just reminded me of why, one of the reasons why I started this. I'm a salesperson, currently at Automation Hero as an SDR, and I'm doing cold calls. I'm doing, going through everything that a salesperson would be going through. And I'm thinking, am I landing right? Am I meeting the buyer where they want to be met? And that's how this buyer seller podcast came up. So I'm going to start with this first question. As a CRO at LinkSquares, what solutions are people trying to sell to you?
Everything. They're trying to tell me everything, including a lot of stuff that's not relevant to me at all. Yeah, so things that folks are selling to me, as you would expect, are typical sales tech stack type stuff, help with prospecting, help with demos, help with forecasting, all of those types of things, generally speaking. Anything that would help productivity of a salesperson. People are coming to sell me on, and I'm always interested because I'm trying to figure out, what are the best tools out there? What are the
Mhm.
things that my team needs in order to be as productive as humanly possible? Close more business, improve our conversion rates. Those are things that I'm always focused on. But when I say they try and sell me everything, I have folks reach out to me trying to offer recruiting services for IT developers and website optimization or security software. So unfortunately, a lot of people are prospecting me incorrectly.
Mhm.
So oftentimes I will ghost those individuals, but I try and give a read through of relevant tech that could potentially help the team.
Okay, I'm already sensing a need for a part two because there's so much you've said that I feel I want to dig into, but there's also so much I'd like us to cover. But one of the things you've talked about is, being relevant in your outreach as a seller to a buyer. And also on the buyer side, you spoke about curiosity about the tools that are out there. And that's something that I try to lean into when I reach out. People say, would you like to learn more, just to see what options are out there for you? And it's interesting when you see buyers who don't have that curiosity. And I always wonder, is it about not having the time to invest in learning about what tools are at their disposal? But let's move on from there. So what's the worst prospecting experience you've had with a seller?
Yeah, so I think the the worst ones are oftentimes the most memorable, right? But I think that the worst the worst prospecting are the ones that are reaching out. They're wasting their time by prospecting a CRO with non-relevant offerings, like something that's totally meant for a CTO or a CIO or something like that, and they just have me in their cadence for whatever reason. And I look at that as probably the worst prospecting, because they spent time putting me in, they spent time, adding me to their CRM and then to their outreach or sales loft, whatever it is that they're using, and they're shooting it out there like hoping, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
misguided top funnel work is probably the worst type of prospecting that you can do, because it's 100% in your control. A little bit more effort goes, a real long way. But the
Mm-hmm.
worst prospecting, back to the more memorable flavor, is probably receiving cold calls where there isn't a lot of value that's being offered on the call, and it's just targeted at driving towards a discovery meeting. I love cold calling. Our teams do a ton of cold calling. It's incredibly effective if done right, if done well. And what I like to hear at the very beginning of a cold call is that someone did their research on me. They know why they're calling Steve Travaglini at LinkSquares, with a little bit of a custom tailorization to who I am to catch my attention. That immediately disrupts the pattern. Most people, when they pick up a phone, even sales leaders, there's pattern recognition that, okay, this is a seller, they're trying to sell me something. Pattern interruption is what you want to go for on that cold call, by showing that you've done your homework, making it a little bit more personalized. That drives up the empathy for the person on the other end of the phone. Okay, they'll hear you out. But once they hear you out, it's not about building rapport and talking about surface level concepts. It's about getting to the real meat and bones of what your solution has to offer to someone like myself. Uh, 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 the worst prospecting experiences are when you're trying to hear out what someone has to say, and they're not actually offering up what the tool does. They say, hey, if you're interested in how you can improve your conversion rate, for example, of course I'm interested in improving my conversion rate. Then let's set up 20 minutes. It's like, well, give me the bullet points as to how you're going to help us improve our conversion rate. Then I'll give you 20 minutes. The most frustrating thing is when they're like, well, it'll be more beneficial for us to just do that on this 20-minute call. It's like, well, you have me right now, so let's just do it now. Like, give me the bullets, and then we'll set up the meeting. And when I get stuck in that loop with a seller, I get really frustrated, because that's like the point for the seller, where why just set up the meeting? Like, figure out if it's actually going to be valuable to me by giving me some of the teaser points on like what the tool or solution actually focuses on, and why you're different than maybe other stuff that I might already have, or other things that I've maybe seen in the past. Getting me that little blurb, it's only going to take you 45 seconds to a minute to get it out there.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's actually a meeting worthwhile for that company to have on their calendar if I buy into those things. Then we'll go much further. We'll go deep on those 20 minutes when I do show up on some of the intricacies of the technology, of the tool, of my buying process, my budget, like all of those types of things. But it's super frustrating when I can't get there with somebody who's putting in the effort, right? So that's those are the worst. When
Yeah.
you get into a stalemate and you're just like, tell me what you do, and they won't tell you what they do. That's the worst prospecting experience.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just listening and seeing how this could reduce no-show because
Yeah,
you've given them something to look forward to, right? From that very first cold call.
that's
Um,
exactly right.
Thank you.
And that,
I'm learning a lot just by
no,
having this
Ukot,
chat.
that's the observation. That's the correct observation. So many people, it's pattern recognition, right? Oh, this is a seller. They're trying to sell me something. They You haven't really given anything, not you, but like the seller, if you're not giving anything to this prospective buyer about what you actually do, is it actually something that they're interested in? All they're doing is say, okay, seller, how do I get them off the phone? Okay, yeah, I'll book the meeting. But they're not going to show up because they don't know why they're going to spend their valuable time on showing up for this thing, right? So junior level salespeople oftentimes have to go through this learning experience themselves to have a ton of people not show up to the meetings, then realize that, okay, it never really was a meeting that was worthwhile. But it's important to say worthwhile for them as a seller as well as for the buyer.
Yeah, thank you. Um, so you talked about the worst prospecting, which is where you're dragging with this seller. Like, tell me, give me something, and they say no, come for the meeting.
Yeah,
And
it's
you actually said that the worst is actually also the most memorable. Because my next question is, do you have any memorable prospecting experience? But now on the positive side, and what made it memorable?
Yeah, absolutely. It's always the worst and best that we remember, right? So the best is basically the opposite of what I just described. Someone reaching out, super personalized, super custom to me, right? Not to my company, not to a CRO, but to Steve, having done homework on the things that I'm uniquely about, interested in, having listened to a podcast like this one, having gone deep on my LinkedIn page and saw that I have some wacky stuff out there, some posts that I've made that are some pretty interesting takes, or different rather, or a link that I have on my LinkedIn page to a Steve Ballmer video, which is kind of out there. Like, show me that you've done the time. Typically, it starts there, and then it goes right into value, right into what they do, having an understanding of what I care about, what the goals are of a CRO, showing that they know that and tying their solution to it, and having brevity. The long written out like 6 paragraph things are tons of effort, but when I open that stuff, it's just overwhelming. I love the outreach that's kind of cuts through the noise. Hey, this is worth your time because I'm a top level salesperson. If I'm taking the time to like really do my research and send you a like a sniper level outreach, and then it's followed by here are the things that we do that are relevant to you. Like, are you interested? Super short email, just 3 or 4 sentences. That's my preference. And then there are also people that have left memorable cold calling experiences where they come in and they cut through that noise. And it's a really different opening that I'm used to, right? That kind of gets me a little bit off balance in a fun way, not like an aggressive way. Those oftentimes are incredibly memorable as well, especially if they can then get to the value pretty quickly. And then we can set up a call to go deeper.
So I'm hearing super personalization,
Yeah.
clear value that is succinct, like very straight to the point, because your time is important. And then you talked about the cold calling side, which is, um, bringing that humor right at the beginning, not like in an outlandish way, and
Right.
also you still hammer on value very quickly.
Yes.
So my SDR brain is going, how do I do this for 100 stews in a day, Because there's always that struggle with um volume and quality. Any quick tips there?
Yeah, I think 100 in a day is probably unrealistic, right? So you have to recalibrate, right? And there are different value targets in anyone's sequence, right? If you're going into one company, you might be calling 3 people, you might be calling 10 people. There are going to be 1 or 2 or 3 target titles or personas that are just like the highest value targets at this account. Those ones would be the ones I'd potentially do a little bit more of the customization on. People that are actual buyers, decision makers, folks like that. So that could help decrease it maybe from 100 people you're targeting in a day down to 30 personalized emails or LinkedIn messages. And the better that you get at doing this, the more scalable it becomes. I mean, the more you do it, the better you get, right? So it's the type of thing where you have to practice, right? Practice makes you better at writing these custom emails. I've done the exercise tons of times with sellers where we actually do a training on how to write a customized email, and we focus deeply on doing it in like 3 minutes or less, and focusing on just using a LinkedIn, and then what interesting items would you pull out for the subject and those first 5 words that are so important for an email. And newer folks struggle, and it might take them 10 minutes to get there, and then we try and get it down to 6, get it down to 5, then get it down to 3-ish minutes, which I think is the blend. In 3 minutes, oftentimes is 100 times more effort than a lot of people are putting into an email that comes into your inbox. So it really does stand out still, and it can, if you can get it to that minute target, then you can do, 10 or 20 in a day, no problem. But, you know, it's easier said than done.
Yeah. Now I have a few quick questions that I'd just like you to go through. Do you listen to voicemails? And have you ever responded to one?
It's interesting. I don't respond to them.
Okay.
I don't listen to them, but I do look at on my cell phone if someone's leaving them on my cell phone, which is the only thing that people should really be calling these days. Uh, uh, I look at the text like translation, right? So if you have a voicemail, it'll like show up as a text message, like, "Hey, someone left this. I have an iPhone, so at least does it on my iPhone." So hey, this like probably does it on Android too, or probably even better, who knows? And it shows me like the gist of who they are and what they're calling about, and it might like register like, "Oh yeah, I received an email from that person." Uh,
Oh,
okay, like they're actually going through the effort of like reaching out to me in multiple channels, some of them on LinkedIn too. And it's one of those like things that builds to the precipitating moment, but
hmm.
it's not necessarily something that I reach back to, but it might influence me to be more likely to reply the next time I get something from them.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no problem.
I know you've spoken to this a bit, but if you could just go about like what makes you respond to a cold email or in-mail. So let's say it's that best case scenario where they've done their research and all that. Would it be that, oh, this is something you're curious about, it's
Yep.
relevant to you? Because someone could do all that work and it's still not relevant, right?
Yeah, correct. So first it has to be relevant. I should be a good target, right? Even if I'm not a good target, if you write a custom intro, custom subject line that's truly personalized to me, deeper than, "Hey, Steve, I saw you the CRO at LinkSquares. You raised a Series C." Like super surface level, everybody does that. Like, "Hey, Steve, saw that you love Steve Ballmer. I know that his hardcore speech at the USC commencement was one of the videos that you had posted on your page. I watched it. Here's the part that I love the most. Blah 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 blah." Anyways, I'm reaching out because, like Steve Ballmer, during his time at Microsoft, I'm sure you're focused on growing year after year. Our tool helps you by improving your conversion rate, by helping your reps better prospect the right human beings, and by helping them spend less time on custom emails. Like that would be something where I'd be like, and it's like, is this worth your time? Like, do you have 5 minutes to chat about this? That I would be like, yes, 100%. Like, let's talk.
Yeah.
But the custom subject line and the custom intro, those things are like, that's what gets me to read it. If you don't have it, I'm not reading it. I just skip it. I just go, yep, nope, not for me. Not for me. Doesn't matter what's in it. Doesn't matter how relevant it is. It might
Mhm.
still say in there, help you increase your conversion rates. Help your sellers prospect the right people and spend less time doing it, make them more efficient with custom emails. And I'll never even read it because it's just lost in the sea. So the things that I'll first select are the ones that I see are pattern disruptors. Okay, elevated effort, elevated skill. I want to spend my time with people that are doing this job at the highest possible level they can do it at. Okay, I want that one. I want that one. I want that one. And then I'm going to read them, and the ones that I'm going to reply to have that nice tie to the intro that like speak to
Mhm.
that I'm interested in with a very concise call to action, short call to action. The ones I'm not going to, ones that I will respond to have the nice intro, some customization, and like 5 paragraphs, and I'll like scan them. And I can't figure out what's going on. And I'm like, oh, I'll give it literally 8 seconds. And I'm like, if I can't figure out what's going on in there, I'm out, delete, gone. Right. So oftentimes the added effort actually works against the seller. And then if it's something where it's like, great intro subject line, and very concise, but just not relevant, I'm just out. But I'm much more likely to tell somebody, "Hey, it's not relevant to me," because if they did the right work on making it concise and personalized.
Yeah, yeah, that's useful because a response is something in sales, whether it's a no or a yes. Getting that
Yeah.
response really helps. the seller here. So another quick question, what's your take on incorporating video into cold outreach?
I love it. I think when done right with, personalized, customized, like following the same principles that we've talked about, concise,
Mm-hmm.
custom, relevant, then it's great. One recent example, a sales rep at Ebsta reached out to me after I made a post about Avicii and Mac Miller, a very CRO-ish post, I know. And he sent me a video of him listening to Levels by Avicii, and he was kind of like jamming out. And then he kind of like got right to it. Meeting, instant, all day. It was awesome. It was
Kudos to that.
funny,
Real
but
rep.
it was
Mm-hmm.
pattern disruption because even amongst video, the pattern starts to get established. What's it look like? It's like, hi Steve, like I want some of your time, right? And that was hot and trendy, like that was different like 4 years ago, right?
Yeah.
That's not different now, right? So for
Yeah.
him, the video, like the thumbnail was even done was like very different. It was like a YouTube of Avicii, and I was like, I just had posted about it, and I was like, all right, like what's this guy doing? It's a little different.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that level of creativity got me to the table. Now we're doing like a proof of concept trial with them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice. How about GIFs?
Uh, you know, I've seen them work for some of my account executives, but I've also seen them backfire massively.
Hmm.
Like when you're sending a GIF or a GIF. I like how you spelled it out because it's easier to like not get it right or wrong. You're taking a chance that you might get like a salty person who like doesn't appreciate it, like freak out and be like it's unprofessional or whatever. Uh, they're kind of cheesy. I'm not really into it. But what I am into, personally, I'm not like that big into GIFs unless it's followed by or precedes a very custom intro, relevant, brief, and maybe a GIF. Okay, cool. Like it's not going to hurt you. But a GIF in place of it being very customized or relevant or brief, not going to help you. The GIF itself, just humor blindly, isn't something that I put a lot of stake in. But it could be a nice, like cherry on top if done tastefully in the right way. But something that I am into that I can't believe a lot of people don't do is
Mm-hmm.
text. Like this cell phone number is all over Zoom Info, Lucia, everywhere, every tool that everybody prospects with. It exists. It's real. I just don't answer cold calls all that much because I'm in meetings all the time. But I'll look at the voicemail like transcription. Every once in a while, though, I will pick up and then we can have one of those fun conversations. But if somebody texts me, I'm like very quick to be like, what do you guys do? It's like, it's not, to me as a sales leader, I don't find it intrusive, but other people might. I don't. I think it's great. It actually saves me a lot of time, and it just kind of like helps us get to the point. Here's what we do. Blah 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 blah. Okay, I'm interested. Shoot me an email and like let me know that we texted. So I think more people should use text.
Great, because that was going to be my next question. What powerful outreach medium are salespeople underutilizing? So you actually answered that question.
We're running out of time, so I'm jumping ahead.
Yeah, so we're almost at time here. So I'm just going to say, is there one thing that you totally want to have to say to sellers listening to this podcast?
Yeah, remember that we all have a lot more in common than we're different, right? There is no, ivory tower that a CRO or a CMO or CIO exists in. They're human being. You have friends, family. They sign into Zoom or they drive into the office, right? Like just like everybody else. And they've gone through different stages of their career. They weren't always the CIO or the CTO or CMO or CRO, right? So they can empathize with people who are coming up, going through it. At least the good ones can remember what that was like and can stay humble, right? But I always advocate for, at least in the prospecting theme of this, trying to target them is to use those emotional similarities that we all have, right? Also took a Dale Carnegie course early in my sales career, which was really interesting and kind of old school, but like foundational and built on human psychology. People are most interested in themselves. So use personal customization, not necessarily professional or even persona and role customization. Personal customization helps to break through. Those are the things that we all have in common. We all are very interested in ourselves, right? So I advocate for using that all the time in outreach, because it's the thing that we all have in common. Even like the most buttoned up CFO cares a lot about themselves and finds themselves interesting. So the thing that I will leave everybody with is the goal of prospecting at an outbound level should be to be interesting and interested, right? You're interesting and you're different by being interested in them as a person, not in them as a CRO.
Thank you, Steve. I am so glad this has happened, and I look forward to more conversations with you. Thank you, and have a
Thank
wonderful
you.
rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you. And I wish you the best of luck with your new podcast. I'm glad that
Thank
I was the
you.
first guest.
All right. Take care.
All right. Bye now.
Bye.